I've always been fascinated by places erased from maps. Whole towns that vanished underwater, their names barely clinging to memory. Stillwater, Georgia was one of them. Most people don't even know the town existed before the dam went up in 1947. It had been a small mountain community. A church, a general store, a schoolhouse, and a scattering of white clapboard houses perched above a slow-moving river. When the government bought up the land to create the Stillwater Reservoir, they gave the residents 3 weeks to move out before the valley flooded. Some left quietly, others refused to go until the water crept to their doorsteps, and a few never made it out all the way. Or that's what people said anyway. I'd been researching southern displacement for a project when I first heard about Stillwater. A farmer I interviewed in Hall County told me about it in a way that made my skin crawl. How divers still claim to see the town beneath the surface, perfectly preserved in the silt. How fishermen heard a church bell toll underwater before storms. He said if you were on the reservoir at the wrong hour, you might see lights moving where the streets used to be. Lanterns drifting beneath the waves, as if the old residents still carried them through the dark. It sounded like the kind of story locals tell to keep kids away from dangerous water. But something about it stuck with me. So when my department offered to fund field research on the cultural after effects of dam projects, I knew exactly where I wanted to go. Before we get into the story, I'm Devin, and this is Porch Lore. Please be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and help me reach 1,000 subscribers. Enjoy the story. This is Porch Lore. And I'm your host, Devin. This is the tale of the drowned bell at Stillwater. It was early autumn when I arrived at Stillwater Lake. The reservoir stretched out like glass between the hills, reflecting the smoky blue of the sky. Pine trees lined the shore, their roots curling down into the red clay. You could almost forget there was anything beneath that calm surface. Almost. The town of Stillwater lay about 60 feet below where I stood, or what remained of it. Old maps showed the church at the center of town, its bell tower the tallest structure. When the water was low, locals said the tip of the steeple still broke the surface, though no one had been allowed to boat out that far in decades. I'd rented a small cabin near the southern bank to use as my base of operations. The ranger station had given me permission to explore the surrounding area, but not to go into the restricted zone near the old town site. There had been drownings, divers who never resurfaced, their equipment later found on the lake floor. It didn't take long for the stories to start. An elderly woman named Nora, who ran the tiny grocery down the road, told me the bell still rang sometimes at night. She'd grown up in the area, and her grandmother had been a child when the flood came. She said people used to gather on the ridge to watch the water rise, and that one man, the preacher, refused to leave his church. He believed the valley's drowning was a punishment. He stayed in the bell tower until the last possible moment. When the water reached his knees, the bell began to toll, slow and steady, echoing across the hills. It stopped only when the roof disappeared beneath the flood. He stayed in the bell tower. Now every time the bell rang under the water, the old folks whispered that another storm was coming. On my 5th night there, the sky broke open. It began with a low growl that rolled through the mountains, followed by a curtain of rain so heavy it blurred the world into streaks of gray. Lightning flashed over the lake, illuminating the trees in harsh white light. The wind off the water howled like something alive. The power went out just after sunset. I sat by the window with a lantern, watching waves slam against the shore. My truck was parked half a mile up the road, and for a moment, I considered trying to reach it, but the wind made the cabin groan, and I didn't really have it in me to try to make it that far. Then, I saw something out on the lake. At first, I thought it was lightning reflecting on the water, but it wasn't. It was steady, pulsing faintly like a lantern's flame. One light became 2, then 3, moving in a slow, deliberate pattern. My chest tightened. The water level had dropped over the past week because of maintenance on the dam, exposing a stretch of cracked red mud along the shoreline. Beyond it, in the storm's chaos, I thought I saw something rising out of the lake. The jagged silhouette of a steeple, slick with rain. It was the bell tower. I don't remember deciding to go. I just grabbed my raincoat, flashlight, and field recorder and stepped out into the storm. I don't know what I was thinking. The wind tore at me as I made my way down the slope. Mud sucked at my boots, the rain stinging my face. Every few seconds, lightning split the sky, and each time I saw it more clearly. The church was there. The steeple jutted out of the lake like a broken tooth, its wood blackened and warped. The rest of the structure seemed half buried in the shallows, the water lapping just below the roofline. The lights I'd seen were clustered near the church steps, pale orbs gliding just above the surface, flickering faintly. I thought at first they must be reflections from boats or houses across the shore, but there were none that close. These were moving on their own. Then, beneath the roar of the wind and the rain, I heard it, the bell. The sound was deep and resonant, too heavy for the storm to drown out. It rolled through the valley, each toll echoing off the cliffs. The water around the steeple rippled with every strike. I remember thinking that the bell couldn't possibly be ringing. It was submerged, rusted, sealed in decades of silt. Yet there it was, tolling beneath the storm. I edged closer, my boots sinking into the muck. Then lightning flashed again, and for an instant, I saw movement near the steeple's base. Figures, half in and half out of the water. Their shapes were distorted by rain, their faces lost to shadow. But I could see the shimmer of wet fabric, Sunday clothes, torn and clinging. They moved with an unnatural grace, heads tilted toward the sound of the bell. But then they turned toward me. The nearest one began to wade forward, and I stumbled back, slipping in the mud. My flashlight flickered, cutting across their faces, and I saw water where their eyes should have been. They came on in silence, feet never fully breaking the surface, their reflections warped and lagging, a heartbeat behind their movements. Panic finally took over, and I ran. The slope was steeper than I remembered, and the mud was giving way beneath me. I was basically slipping up the hill. I scrambled toward the ridge, my heart hammering, every breath a gasp of rain and fear. The bell kept ringing behind me. Slower now, tolls spaced far apart, as though the lake itself was breathing. Halfway up the ridge, I slipped again and landed hard. When I looked back, the lights had followed me onto land. The shapes behind them moved in jerky motions now, as if the storm itself was pushing them forward. I saw the church fully then, in a flash of lightning, its roof collapsing inward, the steeple leaning like a dying tree. The water churned violently around it, as if something massive were stirring below. And from that roiling darkness, something rose. A shape too large, too wrong to be a man. It pulled itself up on the steeple, black water pouring from its limbs. For a moment, I thought it was tangled driftwood. Then, it lifted its head, and I saw the hollow where its face should have been. Inside that void, something glowed faintly red, and the bell tolled again. Then the thing let go of the steeple. It vanished beneath the water, dragging the lights down with it. The storm broke soon after. I stood there in disbelief. Then I ran. I made it back to the cabin just before dawn, soaked and shaking. The power had returned, thank God, but my reflection in the window looked like someone else. Pale, eyes wide, hair plastered to my face. I could still hear the bell echoing faintly in my ears. When I tried to play back the field recorder, all I heard was static. And beneath it, faint rhythmic tones, like something trying to imitate the sound of a bell underwater. I left Stillwater that afternoon, but I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen. The orbs, the figures, the way the bell had seemed to rise and fall with the storm. A few weeks later, I contacted a local historian to ask if anyone else had reported seeing the church resurface. He told me the water level hadn't dropped enough in decades, not since the 1970s. The steeple, he said, was long gone. When I mentioned the bell, there was a pause on the line. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. The church's bell had never been recovered. Before the flood, divers had tried to remove it, but the chain holding it in the tower jammed. The preacher refused to leave, and when the water finally reached the church roof, they said he was still ringing it, until it pulled him in. No one ever found his body. Sometimes fishermen still hear the bell tolling before a storm. They say it's the preacher warning the living. Others believe he's calling the drowned to rise again. I'm Devin, and thanks for joining me, Porch Pals. For more stories like this, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and help me reach 1,000 subscribers. And remember, there's always room for one more on the porch.